pursue what it is you want to do and keep pursuing it until you find the people that want to do it with you or will let you do it with them. And don't do it in an entitled way. Don't do it in a what's in it for me way. Do it in a I want to work in this profession.
Welcome back to Case Studies. I'm with my friend, Andy Dent, cowboy, who is one of the best investors that I've ever met. But that's actually not where I want to go in this conversation. I want to talk about leadership, and I want to talk about, just kind of human development, leadership, believing in people, and kind of delve into that side, because I know you've had leaders in your life that absolutely shaped your life.
Yeah.
And, I kind of want to go through that process because it fires me up. I remember we were talking about this one time, and literally I was just in tears, hearing about like these special leaders in your life that believed in you more than you believed in yourself, like Shannon being one of them.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to go today. So we'll get into the investment stuff and we'll get into the journey, but the core reason that I want to talk to you is about leadership.
Okay.
Both how do you, what are the characteristics to be a great leader, and then also like who influenced you along the way. Maybe let's go back to the beginning, like home. Tell me about home growing up.
Okay. Yeah. So I was born in Salt Lake City and lived there until I was 8 years old. And my parents had some financial issues when I was 8, and our world kind of changed, and we moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, and was raised there until about halfway through high school. And then we moved back to Salt Lake.
How aware were you of like the financial issues? Like being 8, you're aware of some stuff, not aware of others. Like, did you fully get what was going on?
I didn't get that things were maybe not going well for them that created the move, but I got the day before we moved. I remember seeing basically everything that I thought we owned out on our lawn for sale. We were having a garage sale, and then the next day we borrowed our neighbor's van, which you're 8 years old. So you're like, well, I guess maybe we're borrowing their van to have a more comfortable ride to Las Vegas. We borrowed our neighbor's van and moved into a rental home in Las Vegas. And that was a dramatic change for me.
Big difference
in my childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had lived a lot differently before that. I don't think I was a rich kid, but I had all my needs met and most of my wants. And so as I've thought back on it, as I grew up in life, I thought back on like, that was a monumental moment for me when I saw that garage sale happen, because it changed my thinking about finances, because our family struggled and was different from that moment on, unfortunately.
And just kind of like decided that's never going to be me.
Yeah. Well, I decided that, I was going to do everything in my power for that to never be me, and probably thought too much about finances and family happiness as a result of that.
Yeah, just because you saw it impact your family.
Yeah. But probably the better thing to think about was preparation, personal choices, preparing myself from a career standpoint to be in a position to take care of my family. And
that stuff at a young age impacts you.
Yeah.
Like I did one of these with Shima Bothman, and she grew up in Iran, like during like the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom literally got like put in prison as like a political prisoner. She was like, so like, here's her mom, and she's going to prison to visit her mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this, like, anytime we travel with Shima and Ryan, like she loves desserts. Like no one that I've ever met And like, it's always super endearing, but like, it's like a real thing. And when we were going through talking about it, she was like, when I was 5 years old, we would go see my mom in prison. And then we would stop by the store. And because of like the war that was happening, they never had any candy.
Mm-hmm.
And when they had it, it was like this scarcity, and like we would get, you know, as much as we could get.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, 45 years old,
yep,
that like
it sticks with you.
It impacts you. So I think about 8 years old,
Yep.
and
Yep.
you just go have that experience, and it's kind of like, yeah, like it tattoos your
does.
soul a little bit.
I remember being in Las Vegas and playing wiffle ball in the cul-de-sac with the neighbor kids, and those ice cream trucks would come by, you know, with the music that you would hear.
Yeah.
And I remember my two, I've got a brother that's adopted who's my same age, and then an older brother that we would all run together. 7 kids in the family, but the 3 of us really ran together.
The closest.
Yeah. And I remember 3 of us just kind of standing there. Well, the kids would get Johnny Appleseeds and the push-up pops and stuff, you know. And but, you know, you can feel bad for yourself for only so long, and then you can say, well, that shaped me. That,
of course,
that created want and grit and drive inside of me.
Yeah.
Because I remember that, like being like, we're kind of the have-nots in this group. And
you want to hear one that shaped me? So, and I don't know if I've ever told you this story. So Elder Stevenson, Gary Stevenson, was like my rich dad growing up. Yeah, you know, our family, the 7 kids, and we never wanted for anything, but we didn't have extras. Like, you know, my dad was a real estate agent. My mom worked full time. She was a nurse, and, you know, so we just, you know, but Gary was, you know, president of Icon. They were kind of the biggest business in Cache Valley for forever, you know, for 40 years. And we go down to Vegas, 17 years old. I still remember this. Go down with Brian to Vegas. We're in Mesquite. And me and Brian were 17 years old. We were going to go to Vegas alone. And Gary's like, hey, if you let me take you guys tonight, it'll be the most fun you guys have ever had. I'll pay for everything. We're like, oh, like, I don't have any money. So that we were going to figure out how to like make Vegas work for $20, you know? So like, this was like a big deal for us. And I remember we go like ride the roller coaster, and then we go to Roost Chris Steakhouse. And I'd never had a good steak ever. And I still remember the first time I tasted it, it was like this flat iron, butter, the mushrooms. And I was like, I literally had this distinct, clear thought, 17, I can still remember it. It was like, I need to make a lot of money so that I can have this in my life going forward. And that was like my like cause and effect conclusion was like, I really want to eat good food as I get older. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's those kind of base level desires when you're younger. It's crazy how they motivate you, how real they are, how they shape you.
Yep. And specific experiences you remember that then shape you. And those experiences may create difficulty and pain, but out of that pain can come growth.
Yeah. And so you were in Vegas until kind of mid-teens, right?
Yeah, I was about, I was, I guess, almost 16 when we moved
back to Utah?
To Utah.
And BYU.
Yeah, went to BYU. I graduated from Skyline High School in Salt Lake City, and
but Skyline's kind of rich kids again. Like
we would find our ways into rental homes and things like that.
Just knew that you wanted to be. Was that school?
That's where my dad went, and so he wanted us to go there.
Wanted you guys to go there.
I remember specifically about Skyline being that was back in the 90s when it was like
powerhouse,
kind of like okay to like wear like grunge.
Yeah,
you know. So I remember being like, I have one pair of jeans and the shirt that the baseball that I got for being on the baseball team.
Yeah,
and like a black fleece jacket. You know,
you fit right in,
and it's like, this is awesome, man. Vegas was a little more materialistic, and I didn't have like enough Girbaud jeans and things like that to like have the look at school. But like this fits right in. My wife my wife went to Skyline, and
Is
I
that where you met
her there.
Shannon?
Yeah. And she always called this black fleece that I wore like every day my homeless jacket. So I should have kept it.
She was just always like into Andy, huh?
So she actually went, she's from Park City, and she decided to go to Skyline. And we didn't start dating till our senior year. I went and played baseball at a junior college.
Where do you go play?
Eastern Utah, which
I didn't
is
know that.
now like Utah State East or whatever. So I went and played baseball there, and partly did that because I got free housing, you know, like in scholarship. And wanted to be a missionary for my church. But as
was faith always important to the family? Like, was it?
Yep.
So that was always something that was important to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Faith was important to my mom and to my dad. And my parents, they had, you know, not a great marriage, and were splitting up. And I was kind of I'd passed that age of where it was expected that I should be a missionary. And as I look back on it now, I don't think I had the courage to leave Shannon, you know.
You were just like,
I saw my parents
so
kind
in love
of
with her,
lose houses and losing kind of our family unit as their marriage was splitting up. And she was like the best thing in my life. And I thought, well, if I go on a mission, I'll lose that too. Cause it was heartbreaking for me to come from a dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
You know? And Shannon's family wasn't really active in the church as she was, a teenager, but she started going to church when we started dating. And I picked her up from school one day, and she told me that she had an experience at school that she wanted to tell me about, you know. So she actually said that she had a spiritual experience. And I was like, oh, cool. Tell me about it. And she said, we had thought about getting married, you know, and she was very supportive of me deciding to get married and not go on a mission potentially. And she said, I'm going on a mission. I'm supposed to go on a mission. And I was like, well, awesome. That's cool that you had that experience. Well, what if I don't go, you know? And she said, you'll have to wait for me. So I had mission papers in within 2 weeks and left like 4 weeks later or 5 weeks later.
But you guys just always like, was it just always like this special like romance, like you and her? Like, was it just like, I know I'm marrying this girl, like this is happening?
When I started dating her,
because you think about that and you're like, teenagers have no idea what they're talking about. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I've had a few of those.
Your brain is not developed, but like somehow, like you and Shannon at that age, like we're just like.
She came to my high school, I think maybe 4 or 5 days after I got there. So here's what I can tell you. She came to my high school 4 or 5 days after I had moved there. And I was just grumpy that I had to move away from this great baseball school in Las Vegas and my friends and all that, and just kind of sat in the back with my hat pulled down. And she walked in. This sounds like I'm like making this up. Maybe she'll listen to this, and I'm trying to be this great romantic guy and husband. And she knows this. I've told her this. I remember the first time I saw her, and it wasn't like some love at first sight thing or whatever. It was familiarity. I knew I had never seen her. So it wasn't a where have I seen you, but it was a I know you. Like I know you. And I'll
like
never
16.
forget that feeling. 16 years old.
Oh.
And that was sophomore year. We started dating our senior year. And when I kind of knew her, but when I started to really get to know her when we were dating is when I thought,
I'm smitten.
I love this person. I love the way I feel about life when I'm around Shannon.
Which anybody who knows Shannon's like obvious, you know what I mean? Like she really, I don't say you're not bringing the energy, but she's like the sunlight. No, you know what I mean? Like she is
the fun part of our marriage and our family. It would be really boring if I was responsible to be the fun.
So she just like finds out. She just like says, I'm going.
Yeah.
And just like that, you're going. So both you guys are going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, this was like the craziest part of your story. Like you guys basically go to the same mission, right?
Well,
right next to each other? Like how did that?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you that story. So I was out pretty quickly, and I was called to the Canada Vancouver mission, and she didn't turn 21. She had to be 21 years old to go, and she didn't turn 21 for 6 months. And so I went, and I had a great companion that trained me, and I worked really hard and kept all the rules and just kind of cried like a baby at night, and had a phenomenal mission president that just was so kind and understanding and temperate with me.
Colton was his last name, right? What was
Sterling Colton.
Sterling Colton. So talk to me about Sterling Colton, because you had experiences with Sterling that were like shape the rest of your life type experiences. Talk to me about, one, how you met him, and two, how he impacted your life.
Sterling Colton was the mission president in the Canada Vancouver mission when I got there. And he was retired, the former general counsel of Marriott, and a graduate of Stanford Law School, and a very, very accomplished man.
Just a powerhouse.
Yeah. With no guile, no arrogance, no ego, and the kindest, most Christ-like man still to this day that I've ever met in my life. True empathy for people and true desire to lift people and to see people reach their potential and to teach people and to plead with people, but also to listen to people so that he could do whatever was in his power to help and to lift. And I wasn't a problem missionary. I was a good missionary. I was a homesick early missionary. I shouldn't say I was a good missionary. That doesn't sound right. But I was an obedient missionary.
I was working. Yeah, like there's a difference between like, hey, I'm showing up and I'm like doing my best.
I was obedient and working, and my trainer was a great friend to me and very patient with me. And he was the leader, a zone leader. So he was the leader of a lot of missionaries around us. And so we'd get home at night and he would go to getting on the phone and directing and leading other missionaries. And I'd just go sit in my chair like this. That was some frayed tweed chair in Burnaby, British Columbia. And I'd just cry my eyes out.
Position.
I would just cry my eyes out, And I mean, this is before email. This is like I'm waiting on Canada Post to get me a letter. They'd go on strike.
Oh my God.
I was like, wow. And I didn't want to go home. I knew I wasn't going to go.
You're in.
I cried my eyes out because there's one way out of this tunnel forward, the 2-year tunnel, and Sterling would meet with me monthly, like in my interviews, and just, if he saw me getting emotional, he would get emotional. And I'm not saying, and that wasn't like staged. That was like,
he just loved you.
That was real love, And he had the humility to call Shannon. So Shannon's this 20-year-old young lady who lives in Park City, Utah, who's preparing to go on a mission. And he's the former general counsel of Marriott Corporation. And he calls this 20-year-old and says, I love Elder Dent. You love Elder Dent. What can I do to help Elder Dent to be happier here? Give me some counsel, Shannon. Like, I think of that today. I mean,
the humility.
I'm 47 years old. Like, what? Another 20 years from now, and I'll never be the businessman that Sterling Colton was in terms of his notoriety and pedigree and all of that. Would I have the humility to call a 20-year-old and ask for counsel? And Shannon said, well, I know that he's working, and I know that he's obedient, and I know that he's sad at night. Give him something to do at night. Make him a leader. Make me emotional, But she said, if you give him an extra assignment, he'll do it. And so he sent me to Victoria, British Columbia, to be a district leader and to train a new missionary. And that changed the direction of my mission because I
absorbed the space. It was bigger than you at this point.
My mission started to become more about not just what do I do when I'm outside the doors of this apartment, But when I'm inside the doors of this apartment, I'm now responsible for someone other than myself.
Shannon just knew. She
Yeah.
just knew like you had to be in a leadership role.
Yeah. Yeah. That changed me and set up the whole rest of my mission that changed my life. Sterling Colton.
Because there was a special connection between you guys. Like, you know, you were his AP for a while, right?
Not Sterling. So Sterling, so before Sterling went home, Shannon gets her mission call, right? And Sterling calls Shannon and says, "Hey, when you get your mission call Elder Dent and tell him where you're going on your mission." You know, so she opens her mission call, and it's to the Canada Vancouver mission. And I think at the time there was like maybe 330 missions in the world, right? And so she gets called to my mission, and I did think it was a joke. Chief Shannon put my mom on the phone who was there, and because I was like, this isn't funny. I'm in Canada. I got to go to bed. You know, like, where are you going on your mission? Canada Vancouver mission. I called President Colton that night and said, Shannon got her mission call, and he was like, "Oh, that's great. That's great, Elder. Where's she going?" I said, "She got called here, President." And he said, "Wow. Okay, well, I'll call her and I'll call the missionary department." And anyway, long story short, she had a mission farewell, which they had back in the day, and she went to the missionary training center and was going to the Canada Vancouver mission. And a week before she was supposed to fly out, she got a phone call from Elder David B. Haight, and I believe he was the executive director of the missionary department at the time. And he said, I don't know why you were called to Canada, but you weren't called there by mistake, but you're now supposed to go to the New York Rochester mission.
Wow.
So she served her mission in upstate New York, where we were fortunate to just take 4 of our 6 children this last week to go see Mom's mission and see the beautiful sacred places there. And so Shannon served in upstate New York, and President Colton went home a couple months later, his mission completed. And then I had 2 other exceptional mission presidents that changed my life. Ken Knight changed my life.
Talk to him about Ken.
He again was just this phenomenal individual. He was a partner of Earl Holdings at Little America and Sinclair Oil, and was 71 years old when he came into the mission field, and just a giant of a leader and a business man in Salt Lake City. Because of the risk President Colton took on me and the counsel that he took from Shannon, I was in a position to kind of know President Knight, because I had some responsibility in the mission, and President Knight gave me more responsibility. And then he, surprisingly to me, asked me to come into the mission office to be one of his assistants when I'd only been out about 11 months.
Early.
Yeah, it was unusual. And in a few months, he became like a father to me. So Ken Knight was a listener. He was methodical. He was very respectful of everyone's opinions. He was the kind that would sit through like an hour-long meeting and just listen. And then at the end, he'd say like 4 things, and everyone would be like,
spot on.
Yeah, that's the answer. That.
Just wise.
Yeah. And he would talk to me about my future a lot. And I told him that I was going to go play baseball again at a junior college or whatever, where I could get a scholarship. And he'd say, why? And I'd say, well, because they'll pay for school and they'll give me a place to live, you know. And he would talk to me about the importance of education. And I'll never forget, he came into my office, in the mission office one day. He had been having some problems with his stomach, and he said he was going to the University of Utah. He was flying from Vancouver to Salt Lake City to get some better medical help and attention for his stomach. And he never came back. He had colon cancer, and he passed away a few short months later. And in that interim of time, he still impacted my life. We didn't have a president in the country for about 2 or 3 months, but we would be in constant contact with him, my companion and I.
So you guys were like running it, like while he was gone.
We were doing
he's
it.
like giving you like some guy, but he's in the hospital. Like he's dealing with his own stuff.
Yeah. And we would fax, like my companion and I would fax like suggested transfer reports that we had prayed about, to this, wise President Knight, and he would go over it with us on the phone, and then he was a newer mission president, and there wasn't like an established mission presidency back then. So they like called a gentleman that was a local gentleman to come in and like interview new missionaries and things like that my companion and I weren't qualified to do, but we would travel the mission every month. We had transfers every month, and we'd travel the mission every month for about 2.5 or 3 weeks, and then come home and have transfers again. And we were in constant contact with President Knight. But before he passed away, he arranged for me to get the education that he thought would.
So tell me about that. I know this was like an experience that, like, to this day, like we were talking about it the other day, and you want to endow a scholarship basically in his name just because he was so impactful. Like he changed the course of your life. You've got this man that just like believed in you so much.
Yeah.
And like he's on his way out. Like I think about like when I'm on my way out, where will I be spending my time? I can spend it anywhere.
Yeah.
Like what will like the decisions, like I think that that gives me chills just thinking about it. Like when you're aligning your affairs, one of those being you're not going to go play baseball because of a housing scholarship. Like you're going to go get a good education, and it's like I'm making that happen. Yeah. That stuff is like, oh man, that's the good stuff.
Yeah, I'll actually never forget when he first said, "Hey, what about going to BYU?" And I was like, well, I can't get into BYU. I was kind of just a scrappy baseball player, like I'm probably not good enough to play baseball there, and I'm not going to get in on academics, and he's like, well, what if I could help you with that, and would you go there? And I had so much faith and belief in him because of the way he treated me and because of his accomplishments.
You kind of would have done whatever he said.
And because he believed in me at the time more than I believed in myself.
Man,
but I was like, wow, I've seen him. He is smart. So I'm going to do what he says.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, on Vancouver Island, there's a town called Nanaimo. And, we had a zone conference in Nanaimo, and we were driving down south to Victoria, which is on the south part of the island. And I got a phone call from him, in the Mission, Suburban. And we had this like big old cell phone, that's bigger than the size of, your can of soda right there, and like it was,
of course,
it was supposed to be so cool that we had this cell phone, but we traveled all over this province. And so we needed
probably mattered a lot. Yeah.
So I get this call and I answer it, and it's President Knight, and he's in Utah, sick, dying of cancer. And, he said, Elder Dent, everything's in place. Like I've arranged for you to attend Brigham Young University if you'll do it when you get home. And I said, I'd be honored, and thank you, President, and I'll do it, and I'll never forget this. He said, I told Sister Knight, that was his wife, Nancy Knight, that I'm ready to die now. That was the last thing I was supposed to do, and never forgotten that when someone bets on you like that and believes in you like that. He changed the course of my life.
Like, what was it? Do you ever think about that and just be like, why did God like put these men in my life? Why did I get so lucky?
Yeah, I do.
Because I'm sitting here listening to this story just being like, I don't know how it all works.
Yeah.
But it works.
Yeah.
And like you had like some father figures
Yeah.
that weren't like, they were larger than life. You know what I mean? Like when you think about like what's the ultimate example of like what it is to be a man and be a leader and be a, disciple of Christ, all those things. And you just had those at like a young age, like those pivotal years.
Yeah, I did. I am grateful forever to God for compensating for me in ways where maybe I lacked, and putting people in my life in such a dramatic way.
They just saw that like you had like the raw goods, because they obviously saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself, but Shannon saw it. You know what I mean? Like you had like you obviously had some it factor, something special that really exceptional people saw it in you and called it out, like, and trying to get you to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's kind of, you just say, I mean, I don't know what they saw. I've always considered myself a pretty average person. Like I don't have some off the charts talents. I was always the small kid in athletics and baseball, and had to work the hardest, and had to kind of work with a chip on my shoulder almost. I remember when I came back from Las Vegas and was at this great baseball school in Las Vegas. It was winter in Salt Lake, and they like had tryouts for the baseball team, and kind of the coach had already picked the team, and I got cut from the team.
How's that possible?
And it was the
best.
It was
high school team in the country
in Vegas. Yeah, it was devastating to me. And my dad went in there and asked if I could still just have a uniform and practice or something, because I had moved here early to be able to play baseball here, and was kind of treated like a second-class citizen that year. But I remember the drive. That was like the Johnny Appleseed candies in the cul-de-sac. It was like, okay, I may not have won the genetic lottery in terms of like my size and all that.
I'm going to out-hustle these
There's
suckers.
no one on this team that will work harder than me.
Yeah.
And just through chip on my shoulder and grit and wanting to not be average, was like captain of the team by the time I was a junior, and one of the home run leaders and all of that. And so when you say, what did Ken Knight or Sterling Colton see in me?
That grit?
I don't know what they saw, but I am so, so grateful to those men for changing the direction of my life. And it's such a lesson to me of how taking the time to give of yourself, not just your financial resources, but to give of yourself to someone, to mentor someone, to believe in someone, but more than they believe in themselves, until they start to build belief in themselves, to set someone up on, here's the path that will lead you to using your talents to the best of your ability. To give that to someone it's priceless. And it's a legacy that they've given to me. I asked President Knight before he died. I actually saw him on his deathbed. He died while I was in the mission field, but I probably shouldn't admit this on this podcast, but it's been long enough now that he flew me home with permission from the church. He flew me to his house before he died as a full-time missionary.
Go see him.
To say goodbye to him. And that was, I'm grateful for those who authorized that, because that was one of the most special moments of my life. I mean, other than marrying my wife and having my 6 children, that's like right there. I asked him if I could repay him for providing the opportunity for me to go to BYU and financially sponsoring me to go to BYU. And he said no. And I asked him again, can I repay you? And he said no. And I was just uncomfortable with taking that big of a blessing, and then he paused and he said, you can. Not my family. You repay me by doing this for someone else someday.
And that was just it. You're
by
just
passing this on to someone
100%.
else.
I'm going to do this.
Yeah. And so anything that I accomplish in life, or any success I have, is because God blessed me at a young age with parents that taught me what was right, and with mission presidents who shaped my life. Because I went to BYU, my first job was in New York City. And because my first job was in New York City, I found out about this profession that I've been in for 20 years now called private equity. And because of that, it's changed everything. It's changed my children's life.
So talk to me about that, because private equity was just getting going. Like, it was kind of like now it's just everybody does private equity. Like, it's a, you know, there's tons of exceptional companies, you know, it's a matured industry, niches, you know, very lot of specialties, but like kind of, it was just on the frontier kind of when you were getting into it, like just getting going. Like, talk to me about what took you there, and two, like what was it that, because you finance major, right? Accounting.
I was a BYU accounting major, and I remember I wanted to be involved in the Marriott School, at the business school there at BYU. I liked business, and I kind of looked to where are all these like really competitive students going in the business school, and a lot of them were going into the accounting program.
Didn't have a finance program then, right?
Or they did, but it wasn't like it is today.
Okay,
it didn't have the junior
accounting back then was like it.
That's where all the competitive,
one of the best
kids inside the Marriott School undergraduate that I kind of knew or associated with were going, and I was like, oh man, I better chip on my shoulder. That's grit. I'm really average. I don't even belong in this school.
Yeah.
Like I got let into this school. Like President Knight's not here now. Like I've got to get straight A's in these prerequisite classes to get into this program, and hope that they let me in. And I was fortunate enough to get into that program. And then from there, it was like, hey, I like finance a lot. I liked the analysis part of the accounting, and I loved the financial analysis and the finance electives that I could take. And you could get a job in a lot of different cities out of the BYU accounting program. So I thought, I love finance. I'm going to New York City.
Yeah, I'm going to go to where all the action is.
Yeah. I knew nothing about private equity. Quickly, I was with a large accounting firm there, and quickly realized that what I wanted to do was be part of their advisory group. That
you didn't want to be.
Like, I didn't want to do tax
doing
or
audits
and I was going to leave and go try to work for an investment bank, and they knew that, and so they were like, "Well, let's let you into our advisory group." And so they had a private equity advisory group that was, transaction services that had private equity clients, and where they did kind of buy side financial due diligence on private equity targets. And that's where I was like, this is what I want to do. And the leverage buyouts were kind of booming, it was when it was,
that was the heyday.
Yeah. Early 2000s, and I was like, man, I like this. I like this a lot. And I would associate with the private equity principals that were running transactions.
Yeah.
And I think, man, and back to that chip on my shoulder, like I want to be one of those guys. I want to be their advisor.
For sure. I want to get the game.
Yeah. Yeah. But I didn't go to Brown University. I didn't go do my undergraduate at Cornell. I wasn't raised to do this like they were, how do I do this? And, I made a phone call to someone again that I had met at the Knight's house, the widow of my mission president. After my mission, I had met Larry Cook at their house for dinner, and I called Larry because he used to be in New York, and I was in New York, and I was like, man, I want to get into private equity. I think I need to get into an investment bank or a boutique bank, and maybe go back and get an MBA. And he was with a local Salt Lake City private equity firm at the time. And he was like, well, you're kind of late to the process, and we've got a lot of applicants that have already had first interviews and stuff, but we're hiring an associate here, or an analyst, would you want to try that, And I thought back to then, like, chip on my shoulder, right? I'm late to the party. I'm average. I'm at an accounting firm. I'm not at an investment bank or a big management consulting firm.
Pedigree.
I don't have the right pedigree, but I'll try.
From birth.
Yeah, I'll try. Yeah, if I could have a phone interview, I would love that. I'll send you my resume, and had a phone interview, and if you do good on your phone interview, we'll give you a case study where you have to build a model and do a complete analysis of a company and tell us whether we should invest or not and all of that. And I had been building financial models at night around our kitchen table in New Jersey. Shannon and I lived in Metuchen, New Jersey, which was like
you were on fire.
35 minutes.
You're like, I got to figure this out.
From Midtown Manhattan. Yeah. And I would get home late at night from working and build these financial models using workbooks because I didn't do a lot of modeling at the accounting firm. I did other kinds of financial due diligence and financial analysis, but not a lot of modeling. And I was like, if I'm ever going to get to where I want to go, I got to
be able to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember in those interviews, those guys asking me, like, can you model, And I'm like, well, yeah. And whatever I can do, I'll teach myself, don't let that be the reason you don't hire me because
I'll figure it out.
I will figure it out.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I got my first private equity job with a local private equity firm in Salt Lake City. And then shortly after that, my two partners today, who were partners at that firm, were leaving, and I was invited to start a new firm with them 17 years ago.
Like the three of you guys.
The three of us. Yeah. 17 years ago, we started Aries Capital.
That's so sick. And so like we've had like intimate, experiences with you guys, done a bunch of deals. We always feel really proud when our diligence checks the box for Aries. Like you guys, our LP is a high net worth family office, and you're probably like the tier of institutional that's kind of about the highest tier that is our customer. We've had Goldman, we've had, some different players come in at different deals, but we always, kind of pride ourselves in saying we need to do good enough work that, when Andy sees our work, that we're not ashamed of it. You know what I mean? That we're proud of the work that we can go put to. You guys just are exceptional. You guys
that's
just
nice of you to say.
So talk to me. This theme is leadership. Talk to me about the leaders of the companies that you've invested in that have created good outcomes, and also some of the outcomes that didn't work out, and kind of traits that you saw that probably impacted the process.
Yep. I've said many times that we back leaders more than we back companies. And I've seen time and time again, leaders with good value propositions in whatever the product or service is that they're offering to the market, but not the best value proposition or not the most earth-shattering competitive advantage, but good leaders who can inspire a good team, who can inspire customers, who can inspire board members, who can inspire employees, can create value in business.
Yeah.
That is really, really fun to watch in the markets that we invest in, because we invest in businesses when the leader still has an impact on the lowest levels, if you will, of the company.
Yeah. So maybe let's go to the fundamentals or the principles. Like, talk to me about your investment principles.
I want it to be a business that is building enterprise value, not around a person, right? So like, are we building something that has asset value that's not just around one person?
Yeah.
Right. I want it to be in an industry that there's excitement about, that there's a future for, right? That it might be that it's fundamentally kind of changing the way people live or businesses do business type industry, that it's like disruptive.
Yeah.
But it might be a really old industry that some entrepreneur is figuring out a way to
breathe a new life into it,
to get something done better.
Yeah.
For whoever its customers or stakeholders are. I want a team, like the leader, like I said earlier, is paramount, right? And I want a team that's invested. Now, what does that mean? We've had deals that have gone very well where the entrepreneur is invested to the tune of millions of dollars. And we have had deals where the entrepreneur has hardly invested anything that would be impressive in terms of capital, but has invested their life into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
they're fully committed.
they're fully in.
Yep.
They're fully in. Like they believe enough that it's not just a call option, that they're in.
Yep.
Right. I want, when we invest, I want to feel like the opportunity that the team is trying to tackle, that they have a realistic kind of grasp on what it's going to take to get there. Like, I believe in every entrepreneur that I have backed that's been successful is optimistic.
Yeah.
But I want them to be smart enough to not temper their optimism, but to have realistic goals with their optimism. Otherwise, they can spend time and resources and capital in ways that don't prove out and become a waste of time and resources, right? So, like, what is it that we're really trying to tackle here? And you be as optimistic as possible, but let's be
let's do that thing.
Let's do that thing.
Yeah.
And I like investing with partners. I don't just mean my partners at Aries. Like, I like investing with co-investment partners.
Yeah. You just get more eyes on it.
I like more eyes. I like more relationships coming into the business through more investment partners.
No, it's fascinating.
I like better counsels around the board table with that many more people that are invested, not just experts on the board, but people that that are aligned with me.
Yeah. From an equity
their firm's capital is on the line.
Yep.
Their career reputation's on the line. They need to and want to see this thing be successful.
Because investing is hard.
Yeah.
And
it's an industry.
Yeah,
it's not an activity.
Yeah,
it's an industry.
It's
a profession.
It's a profession, and business is hard.
Yep.
So you better have that. Even if you have that stuff, it still might not work.
Yep.
But your chances of it working, if you don't have that stuff, go down significantly. All this stuff you're describing it's so fun to hear you articulate it. Because I'm thinking about deals that we're in together that have those characteristics, or other deals that you've done that have been like just exceptional outcomes that had those characteristics, founder completely committed.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm thinking of one deal specifically, the Acima deal.
Yeah.
That there was a lot of players that had kind of the same offering. So it wasn't like this crazy differentiated offering.
Yeah.
But Aaron just kind of force of nature, that sucker.
Yeah.
He just literally bulldogged it to fruition, and it happened.
Incredible entrepreneur.
But I think about that, and I'm like, that had the characteristics that you're describing.
Yeah.
Founder that's fully invested, that's fully committed. Maybe not the best product market fit. It was fine. It obviously worked.
Yeah.
But it wasn't proprietary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was more about sales. It was more about who can actually get out and hustle harder.
Yep. And if you talk about Aaron as an entrepreneur, so his most leaders of the businesses of the size that we're involved in come from a certain, let's call it, discipline inside of business, right? So they're an ops guy, or they're a sales guy,
specialist,
or they're a finance person, or and Aaron was a sales professional. I mean, that was by far and above. That was the biggest skill that he was bringing to the table. His background brought to the table. How to establish, how to form sales teams, how to motivate sales teams, how to manage sales teams, how to train sales teams, how to sell himself. But that's not what was so impressive about him as a partner and as an entrepreneur, as impressive as that was. What was so impressive about him is his willingness to dig into the weeds of the business and try to become as much of an expert in the other areas of the business that were so crucial for the business to be successful as he was an expert in the sales.
How inspiring is that? Like, I come from that world that Aaron came from.
Mm-hmm.
And like, when you talk about like insecurities of like not having the right pedigree, like that's my whole life. You know what I mean? Like, it's never been the right pedigree ever on any college, on any profession, on any piece of it. But I always knew how to hustle, and was scrappy and was resourceful and industrious. But the people who always inspired me were like the Steve Youngs and the Kobe Bryants and the Shaquille O'Neals and the Magic Johnsons, and like these guys that were like specialists
mm-hmm.
in one thing that somehow went and recreated themselves and took those same principles
mm-hmm.
that made them successful in that thing and became really exceptional business people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they were exceptional athletes, but at the end, like, they were business people. They were entrepreneurs at a really high level, and they went and got those other skills. But you kind of got to be humble, and you got to go back. And so what you're describing with Aaron, it's easier to stay in your lane. It's easier
mm-hmm.
to stay in your strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of instant gratification. You've already put in those 10,000 hours to be just
mm-hmm.
so strong in that area. But for him to go like actually become a CEO,
mm-hmm.
that's different work.
Yeah, different work. And it's interesting because some people could misunderstand that and think, oh, okay, you're gonna take a salesperson that's then gonna go become an expert in lease accounting and an expert in product management and an expert in machine learning and data science, and they're gonna try to micromanage the whole business. But the best leaders understand that there is someone that understands data science better than them. But they want, if they're going to lead and manage that data scientist, and if that is which in this case it was, if that is a part of the business that is absolutely critical to the success of the business, then how do you sit in a board meeting? How do you sit in a management meeting? How do you sit in a leadership meeting and not know anything about lease accounting or not know anything about data science? And so what I respect about those leaders,
it's not that much different than what you're describing with yourself, which is like, do not hire me because I can't model. I'll figure it out. Like this isn't like what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
But I will figure it out. Like, and I think it's that. I think it's like that core of industriousness or resourcefulness, just like, I will be resourceful and go
I will
figure it out. But then it's also like the awareness that like you're not going to figure it out better than the expert.
Yes. The humility.
And you kind of don't have to either. Like that's not the point.
That's not the point. Let the expert be the expert. Leaders that try to do everything are not successful leaders, and they burn everyone out.
So I remember reading this book pretty young by Marcus Buckingham. It was called Now Discover Your Strengths. And his entire thesis was that there will be a handful of things that you can be really good at. And that the best leaders in the world, they're not well-rounded. They're sharp. They kind of go all in
mm-hmm.
on these superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
But the caveat to that was you're never going to be best in the world at everything. But you do need to minimize your weaknesses enough that
mm-hmm.
they don't burn the boat, that they don't sink the ship because they're that much of a liability.
Yeah.
So it's not that you're ever going to be like, for me, I'm never going to be an accountant.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to be great at modeling.
Yeah.
But I do need to speak the language, and I do need to understand financials and read a bit. But what I really need to do is hire
mm-hmm.
exceptional people around me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to be able to be in the room and to be able to navigate it, and I think that's what you're describing with Aaron.
Yeah.
But you've had a number of those. Like, talk to me about like other leaders that you could call out and you could say, this person took this business to this point, operating from those same principles.
We've got a great company today called Cozy Earth. where we have a phenomenal entrepreneur leading that business.
Same thing.
Tyler House.
Yeah.
Same thing. Loves product development, loves sourcing products, loves the cultures of the places that we source the product from, right? But
passionate about
it. But I watched him, all in on the business. He's all in, but that core kind of strength is the leader jumping with us and they're all in. But I watched him go throughout the various disciplines of the business and how we sell the product and how we acquire customers and educate himself so that he's not, again, the expert running the day-to-day and micromanaging every facet of the business, but so that he can lead, inspire, attract talent, hold people accountable in all the aspects of the business. And they're entrepreneurs like that are rare, right? That's hard. That takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of passion. It takes
your whole life.
That takes a lot of time when you're not at your desk, thinking about tomorrow and where the business needs to go and where you need to go as the leader to help the business, and then what is mission critical. But like as I think back, is when you ask what are our investment philosophies and due diligence and all of that, like you talked about, when I started and when I first came back from New York, like it was probably like, here's all the things that need to be just completely thought through and analyzed and all of that. And I'm not suggesting that I don't do due diligence now or that due diligence has somehow shrunk. But as I look at almost a 20-year career now in private equity, and I think of the deals that I've done, to me, a good investor starts to be able to spot quickly, regardless of what opportunity is placed before them, the 3 or 4 key things
have to prove
true for this to work.
Yeah.
And at what level they have to prove true for it to be an exceptional investment, and what is the downside of them not proving true? Like, how bad is the risk?
Yep.
How catastrophic is it if these things don't prove true?
Yeah.
And to me, the best investors that I've been around and what I've tried to learn and become as an investor is because time is everything, right? You can look at deals all day, but you can only do so many.
Yep.
You only have so much capital. How do I identify those things? How do I identify those things quickly? How do I get smart enough about an industry quick enough to figure out? Because some of those are industry specific, right? Like it's not just like this 30,000 foot.
I'd probably
template.
say most of them are industry specific. Yep. Like I think about that simple book, The Richest Man in Babylon, and he talks about give money to the brick maker to build bricks.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give money to the brick maker to buy diamonds.
Yeah.
And it feels like when I've screwed it up, I've given money to the brick maker to buy diamonds.
Yeah.
Great founder, did well in one specialty, jumps to a completely different category.
Yeah.
And that's where I've gotten into trouble. Like when I really look back at like the ones that didn't work.
Yeah.
I did not find the brick maker that was the best at building bricks and invest in building more bricks.
Yeah.
And when it's worked really well, I've done that.
Yeah.
As simple as that sounds, like they are category expert at that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you are going to do it again. Like that to me is like all lights green. Like if I can see that, all the other stuff has to line up. Like the way I think about the diligence process is like, that's plain stakes. Like that just has to, that'll get found out. Like we'll go, that the quality of earnings and the analysis and the, like the model has to tell the story that you think it's going to tell, or the deal's dead anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But the model doesn't matter if the core like isn't there. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right. And as I go back to my first statement of we back leaders, there is almost a direct correlation that the more comfortable I get with a leader, the more comfortable I'm going to get with the industry.
Yeah.
Because they've done the dive. they've done the dive
Well,
on the industry.
and they make you feel comfortable. Like
Yep.
it's when you ask the question, the way they respond, if it's scared or if it's certain, and you can feel it. You can like there's like it's so fun to be around, and it's funny because some of these industries are like not sexy. They're like, but to that person, it's like it's the most beautiful thing. Like they speak about that specialty with such like category expertise.
Yes.
I mean that stuff fires me up. Like when you find that person talking about that thing with that much like deep knowledge. Yeah, that's fun. Super fun. I'm thinking about Todd Peterson, and he's, that to me, like he's probably the best investor I've ever met, but it's intuitive to him. And it's always betting on, like Todd's never done a financial model in his life. It's finding a person that he believes in with a strategy that's compelling at a price that's compelling. And
the more he believes in the person, the more he believes in the industry.
Yep. And then you get behind it, and then you go figure out, and the thing that's unique about Todd is he'll add value. He'll say, who do I know that could help? How can I lean in? Like, it's doing the stuff that these mission presidents did for you. Like Todd changed my life. He was that guy for me because he believed in me with so much certainty that it gave me the certainty to believe in. And it changed, my entire career. I ended up being in, a sales career for 18 years. And if you'd asked me when I was 22, it's a 1-year job. You know what I mean? But it came down to the leader believing in me, and having that conviction. And it's kind of one of those things where it was like, I had so much confidence in him that I'm like, if you say this is good, it's good. I'm in. Like, you tell me which mountain to climb and I'll go climb it better than anybody else,
You know the feeling. And then when someone believes in you like that, you don't want to let them down.
You won't let them down.
Yep.
Like, it's like, I still remember I would drive to Arizona, and almost like refugee camp, where like mattresses on the floor in this apartment. And I've got my wife at home, and I'm sleeping on the floor in an apartment, knocking doors. And this is 2008, 9, 10, like the zombie apocalypse with residential housing.
Yeah.
Like the world is, world's imploding. But it, like, failure was not even considered. Like, there was nowhere on the radar where that could happen. It was just a question of like how much work we'd have to go do. And that was our thing, was drive to Arizona, stay down there till you sell 10 accounts, come home, recruit some people, go back. But so much of that that drive or the hustle those first couple of years, the money was a byproduct, but it had more to do with like, I don't want to let these guys down.
Yeah.
Like Alex and Todd, these guys believed in me, and I will not let them down. I will not have them have egg on their face. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's good. That's good motivation.
It's incredible motivation.
I don't know of too many things that like drive you harder than
especially when that belief that those people like my mission presidents and like Alex and Todd in your life, when that belief, for me, that belief from those mission presidents also came out of love.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was just so pure, right? Because I really had nothing to offer them.
Yeah.
Right. Like they just wanted to see me reach my potential.
No, that's the good stuff in life. Okay. So there's a bunch of places we could go. We're going a little long. So I'm going to have to tighten it up as we finish up. So talk to me about faith. It's kind of been a theme of this, and I don't think there's any way to separate your life from a course of human events that's just unique. Faith has just got to be central. So talk to me about that. Like, where does faith fall in the mix with you, with Shannon, with your family, with all of it?
It's everything to us. Yeah. Our faith, our belief in God as our Father in heaven and us as his children is everything to us. Our belief in Jesus Christ as the Savior of the world and as the one who understands best it means everything to me. I remember when I decided to go on a mission, I'm just this punk 20-year-old baseball player. The bishop said, "Hey, what's your favorite scripture? I'm going to put it on a plaque for you, a missionary plaque that we're going to give to you when you get back." And I picked this scripture that's been kind of the theme of my life. And I have no idea why I picked the scripture other than it's been the theme of my life. I liked it, but it was one of those things where, wow, I didn't know how meaningful this was going to be to me. It's Proverbs 3:5-6. "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not to thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." And so as I have put my trust in God, because we just don't get to have a fully illuminated path all the time. We take moments of illumination and then we walk forward by faith. And as I've put my trust in him, and as I've remembered those moments of illumination, that word is key, remember. Remembered those moments of illumination, they create more moments of illumination, if that makes sense, of where I see God in my life, where I see a Father in heaven and his Son, Jesus Christ, in my life and in my family's life. And so my experiences with my mission presidents have helped me, because there's this saying, like, the further the receiver gets away from the giver, like physically, emotionally, mentally, the more entitled the receiver becomes. Well, when you have someone like Ken Knight do what he did for me, and I realize Ken Knight's the reason I'm sitting in this chair talking to you. So if business goes well for me,
that's the root cause.
Yeah, I go back to what he told me, and I have a legacy to live up to, right? Of what Ken Knight left me. Like, I need to face him someday. And I need to say, you made a good bet. Let's take that a step further, though. Jesus Christ has done more for me even than Ken Knight did. Like, what's my legacy there? What can I do? What can I pass on? Who can I help in a way that I can face him someday and say, you were a monumental figure in my life. Thank you. I hope that I've done something that is makes me somewhat, I'll never be deserving, but somewhat able to sit here and bask in the blessings of my life because of you. And so my faith is not just a belief in what theologically I believe in, but it's about connection. And it's about how I live and where I want to be someday.
So you said two things in there that, I'd like you to elaborate on. 2 points. The first one was kind of this principle of stewardship and kind of there will be an accounting. Like, how do you think about that? Kind of this principle of, I've been given much, but it's a sacred trust.
The day after I had the biggest success that I've had in my career financially, I went to Ken Knight's grave to say, I know from where these blessings flow, and not just from you. They've come from God. But you made it possible in my life for them to come from God. I'm not forgetting. I'm the receiver. I don't deserve any of this. I'm not the big stud that made this happen. And I am not disconnected from the giver of these blessings. I'm not entitled.
Wow.
I'm not entitled. I'm a steward. I'm happy. It's not this killjoy. I'm happy. I'm pumped.
You're fired up.
It's worked out. yeah, this is awesome. Um, but
But
I know where
yeah,
I know where this came from, and so that might help me to stay grounded and to
it's gonna couple it with the second question I was gonna ask you, because I think about this a lot. The principle of remembering. And I think when we don't remember, that's when we get into trouble.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because all of us, like, I can go through my life and I can rip off 20 miracles, 50 miracles, like 100%. This is when God talked to me. I
Yeah.
know it. 100%. This is where this abundance showed up in my life. We didn't deserve it.
Mhm.
When I am grateful, when I count my blessings, and when I remember.
Mhm.
When I get into troubles, when I stop remembering.
Mhm.
And it's kind of what you're talking about, the disconnection between the giver and the receiver, and that's where the entitlement kicks in. But the giver, the giver being God, that separation is where the entitlement kicks in. It's lack of remembering.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
start kind of thinking.
Yeah. And I don't think that most people say, this great moment happened, this great moment of spiritual illumination happened for me, or this great moment happened in my life, and I'm going to choose to not remember it. But like life
gets hard.
Life gets hard.
It gets intense.
Challenge
Yeah.
and pain, whether that's physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever, help kind of gets in the way of people remembering just the mundane of the temporal world, of just day to day, just trying to feed our families, just trying to keep up.
Yeah.
Gets in the way. Our hobbies can get in the way of us remembering. Whatever our pursuits are in life can get in the way that maybe can come in conflict with us remembering our insecurities and our own weaknesses that are just part of the human condition. Like whatever those are and whatever those insecurities lead us to do can get in the way of us remembering. Like remembering is an active thing. It's like it doesn't just happen. I've heard you talk about meditation.
I mean, for me, it's a practice.
Yeah.
And it's daily, and it's a habit that I do every day.
Mhm.
Like I actually, and it releases all the good inside of me. Like when I get deep into gratitude,
Mhm.
I show up better.
Mhm.
When I list the things that are great in my life, I show up better. You know what I mean? And when I don't, I kind of get focused on what's not great.
Yeah.
And both are always available.
Yeah.
Like you could list off 20 problems that are in different portfolio companies right now.
Yeah.
That aren't great.
Yeah.
And it's not that you stick your head in the sand and hope they go away.
Yeah.
But you don't need to give them your life.
Yes.
You put them in a box and you address them when you need to address them.
Yeah.
But you got to be deliberate to go give that good energy to the good. You know what I mean? Or it's like a garden.
Yeah.
And the weeds will take the garden if you're not deliberate in making sure those weeds don't take the garden. You know what I mean?
That's well said. And that's why that scripture is so monumental for me, the trust in the Lord part, right? Because I'm a risk corraler, right? Like that's what I do for a living.
It's your whole life.
I corral and price risk. And in a lot of ways, I'm like, I'd like to eliminate risk.
Yeah, like zero if you could.
Push it away, get my arms around it. And sometimes like the inflexibility of the human condition, like we are all going to have our share of what we wished or hoped or didn't think or didn't imagine could happen to us, happens to us. And when it does, am I still willing to remember? Or am I so upset about me not being able to have kept this risk away and have kept this bad thing from happening that I choose to even doubt what happened, or I choose to be so focused on my current circumstance and the pain that I'm feeling that I can't remember, right? And so that's back to trusting that God has good things in store for all of us.
You ever read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl? He's a Austrian psychologist, Jewish Austrian psychologist. that went to Auschwitz during the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
And like Chelsea and I, we went to Poland, we went and saw Auschwitz, and like, it's unfathomable that happened 70 years ago. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to comprehend that evil existed, but it did. And here's a guy that had a great life, upper class life, to I'm in a Auschwitz.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a camp where 95% of the people are dying.
Mm-hmm.
And but he's a psychologist. And so he kind of looked at it from like a professor's lens, and ultimately wrote this book called Man's Search for Meaning. And his summary was that the people who lived, they had some meaning or purpose in their life that kept them going.
Yeah.
And the ones that died, they gave up. The light at the end of the tunnel, the hope. And he said that, for him, there was a time where they were literally doing like an experiment on his body, his physical body. And he had this vision that he was going to be in front of a group of college students teaching about this experience and what he learned from it. And anyway, phenomenal book. But what you're describing is that it's like, we're not going to go through Auschwitz, but we are going to go through our trials. We are going to go through hard times.
Yeah.
And to be able to find joy and to be able to find meaning in those times, I think is like the whole reason we're here. It's to like endure it well. You know what I mean? To like,
yeah. And just like we try to corral risk and can't keep it fully corralled, like those moments that we're supposed to remember, those moments of illumination, as I referred to earlier, like we're not going to get those every day. Like that's not part of how life works. Like, and we'll be really needy and disappointed if we expect a new one every day. I'm not saying that life can't be great every day, that we can't have gratitude every day, and that we can't be connected every day when you talk about faith, right? But I am saying the big moments that we need to remember that keep us grounded and keep us connected, right? Like we're not going to have those every day, and that's okay. That's part of the trust.
Yeah.
That's the trust in the Lord.
Your career has everything to do with this. Like for me, it's all one thing. But like if you're talking to some kid that's a young 20s kid that wants to get into private equity, what advice are you giving that kid? A young Andy Dent. If you're talking to Andy Dent today, what advice are you giving to 22-year-old Andy Dent?
Outside of the pedigree advice is what you're saying. Outside, what are the channels into private equity outside of like the typical career advice that you can kind of find?
Somebody's looking at you saying, I want your career.
Yeah.
You're looking at you saying, I want that. What advice do you give yourself after you've traveled that journey?
That being around and connected to and being given opportunities by the right people is what will create a successful career for you. And as you are just grinding it out, trying to move through that brick wall, whether you're the most pedigreed person and most qualified person for the position, or whether you're the not pedigreed person with the chip on the shoulder that has to get there through grit, to not forget as you're getting there that the people that you connect yourself to and that you partner with and that you learn from and that you hitch your trailer to, like, make the difference in your career.
That they'll open doors for you.
They do. Yeah. The companies come and go. The industries change. They evolve. The services, the products, all of those evolve. But the people and what you learn from the people, and not just the connections and the network that you have, but what you learn from the people.
You always had an ability, and you've done this with me. Like we didn't know each other before we did deals, but like I feel like I have a special connection with you. And so if I feel that, you have this ability to connect with people, what advice would you give to that? Like, what does that young Andy or that young have to do to connect? Like, what are the characteristics? What are the things because it's a competitive industry to get in, it's competitive. How do you differentiate yourself? And I've got my personal opinions on it, but like what are the things that you make yourself different?
Yeah. There's the technical ways that you do, right? Like, I mean, I've got 2 son-in-laws, and not to say that they're interested in my chosen career path, but I've told my son-in-laws the advice that I give them just from a technical standpoint that's different than when I started 20 plus years ago, is that they have got to be smart about computer science, the way technology is changing business, data science, AI, machine learning, whatever you want to call it. They have to be versed in that, because that is starting to touch
It's the future.
Every business.
Yeah.
Every business. From a technical standpoint. From a advice that I would give a 20-year-old standpoint, beyond just that the people matter, it's that I would say pursue, and I mean this genuinely, pursue what it is you want to do and keep pursuing it until you find the people that want to do it with you or will let you do it with them. And don't do it in an entitled way. Don't do it in a what's in it for me way. Do it in a, I want to work in this profession. I want to work in this company. Here's the skill sets that I bring to the table, and the ones that I don't bring, I will get, that are necessary for me to be successful. I will get, because I want to be part of this company, and I will make it worth your while to bet on.
So what you're describing, and I'll end with this. This is like, we just hired a female employee that we weren't hiring the position. There was no position. Cold contact to us, inbound.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to work for your company. Okay, we're not hiring. 2 other references from people that we really respect called us, hey, you should really hire this employee. She's exceptional. So, like, okay. She goes through the interview process, interviews everybody in the company, and she figures out what my wife likes, what Dave's wife likes. She's so beyond proactive. Gets the job. And it's not a senior job, it's a junior job. And in the course of like 3 months, she's punched so far above her weight in every, like, this is the job, this is the delivery. This is the anticipated job that you didn't even ask me to do, but I think you should have asked me to do. And I'm just going to do that one and give the delivery. And in the course of 3 months, I've just like literally watched this masterclass of value creation that I'm like, if I could bottle that up and give that to somebody, is like, this is how you go capture the hearts and minds of the people that you work with and your boss.
Yep.
Because what your boss wants is like results. And he wants somebody that doesn't need to be told what to do. They anticipate. And like, now we're just like dumping stuff on her because we know it's going to get done. It's going to get done in an exceptional manner.
Yep.
Anyway, so I what you're describing of kind of know what you want and stay at it.
Yep.
But not in an entitled way.
No.
In a, I am going to blow your mind with value. I'm going to disproportionately put more dollars into your pocket than I ever take out. And that relationship, you're always going to have a lot of friends. You're always going to have a lot of people that want to do business with you if that's what you do.
And anyway, that's going to create more opportunity.
No, so good. Brother, I appreciate you coming. Know that I love you like a brother. Really admire you. Admire Shannon. Admire the life that you guys have created for yourself and the deliberate life. You know, I look at the decisions that you've made, and they're not casual decisions. They're deliberate decisions to get an outcome. And it's just, you know, you're a couple years further along the road than we are. And we look at your family and we look at kind of how you guys do it. And we just, we try to emulate people that we look up to, and you guys are in that category of people that we really look up to. So thanks for coming in and sharing, those nuggets, the good stuff. So thank you, brother.
Thank you, Casey. I appreciate the opportunity, and I love you too. And I want you to know that you are the most abundant person that I know. And that is your greatest quality. You have a lot of great qualities, but you are an example to me of a very abundant, giving person. And I appreciate your example and your friendship. And you're a guy that I know I could ask anything of. And if you could do it for me, you would do it. And so that's a treasure to me. So thank you.
Oh, that's the good stuff. I don't know if you give me a more kind compliment than that.
Thank you.
So thank you.